So I was originally planning on making this video to talk more about the 3D printing experience, and suffice to say, I will definitely be making that video. I have been absolutely in love with it, but what I actually wanted to talk about today was Bionicle Generation 3 and my continuing plan. If you guys have watched some of the videos I put out back in like November, December, I talked about a couple of the sets that I had designed for this theme, this project, this idea. And essentially, that's what we're going to be looking at today. Another one of those sets, the largest of those sets, in fact. But before I get into it, I did want to make a correction for the last video for the 3D printer because I had accidentally attributed this design, I shouldn't say accidentally, mistakenly attributed this design to Rothanak. Well, they actually reached out to me over on Instagram to let me know that this is actually King K's design for the Batera helmet. They do have one, it is similar as well, but yeah, I did attribute it to the wrong person, so my apologies for that. I did put a correction in the description, but I should probably put a pinned comment too, if I can figure out how to do that. I haven't done that before, but hey. With that said, though, they all make wonderful pieces, so I do want to shout out King K here for this design, for a lot of their designs as well, and again, Rothanak too, because I do plan on printing some of their stuff in the future. There are also a handful of really excellent, really talented 3D modelers out there. King Sidorak, Red Star Games makes some really incredible stuff, and there are a lot more, even like smaller scale designers, people even on my Discord that have been designing their own parts, and it's been so much fun. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into, well, Bionicle Generation 3. And I wanted to talk specifically about why I don't think SCCBS works for a Bionicle Generation 3. But with all that out of the way, let's hop on over. You guys have waited long enough. So this right here is Avalanche Mountain. It's a very generic name, I know, but it is fitting for what this is. It is 1,266 pieces, and if this was a real product from LEGO, if I designed this, this is roughly what you would get. At least, you know, assuming that it meets all of LEGO's criteria for making an actual set. This does include some custom pieces. I did design custom pieces for this theme, notably, of course, the masks for the actual characters, the weapons for some of the characters as well, but also even these like large rock structure pieces, which are really good for holding plates together as well, and just being a larger version of this more familiar fur / rock piece, which is a lovely piece, by the way. With that said, the actual functionality to this, and we're going to take a look at some of the pods that go with it, and I'll talk about what those are here in a handful of minutes too, but you get a lot for your money here, at least in my opinion. Now, there are definitely some functions, some more functions that could be packed into this, because the footprint of this is quite large, and it does have a couple of functions, but they're actually pretty small, all things considered. We'll take a look at those as well, and of course you'd be getting this Rahi over here, a play on the Mawaka and Kanira, and I actually have one built that I'm going to show you in a minute, literally sitting right in front of me, and I've showcased it on the channel as well. So the set itself very clearly highlights this mountainside with a lava river flowing between it, and I love the aesthetic here, especially the colors here as well. I think I might be using like I'm using regular orange. I thought it was like medium orange here just to really stand out. I know that medium orange is obviously not a color that LEGO has anymore. They'd probably use Keat orange, but I use it for render purposes because it's just a little bit easier to see on the eyes. That said, it's a lovely little design here. And as you can tell, if you've been following along with this sort of series, though it has been a while, this is a board game. The whole purpose of this is to essentially be a product unlike anything else that LEGO has on the shelf currently. And that's one reason why I think that SCCBS just doesn't work for Bionicle. Bionicle is a very character-driven story, but the problem with SCCBS is that when you buy sets, you're essentially buying sets that A, would have to compete directly with Star Wars without really doing anything new, to compete directly with Marvel, etc., because we're getting the mechs from those sets, and of course, powerhouses, juggernauts like Ninjago, etc., right? And so for Bionicle, you might be able to sell a couple of nostalgic sets, but I don't think you could sell a whole team of 6 sets because, again, just like Lego realized in the past, unfortunately, people aren't buying, stone Bionicles, brown Bionicles, or whatever, which is why they changed the color of it in the first place. And I think it's sad because it's one of my favorite elements to work with, one of my favorite colors. But it is harder to sell certain colors because kids are going to pick their favorite. And if your characters, well, this one's red, this one's blue, this one's green, this one's brown, this one's white, this one's black, etc., the popular kid-friendly colors are going to sell faster, especially when the differences between them are mostly marginal, right? With all that said, of course, let's actually take a look at the model itself. You can see that there's this big pine tree or, conifer tree of some kind over here. Each of my sets involves at least one tree-like build or plant-like build. I am a plant aficionado as it is anyway, and it adds some life. It adds some color to the set. Each set also includes a Lego animal of some kind. So in this case, you have a crow sitting at the top, which I think is just super cute. On top of that, there's a little function here where you can just kind of like jiggle this piece here. I know, nothing fancy, but there's a little ramp over here on the opposite side that holds up these boulders. And by like jiggling it, you'll knock loose the boulders and they can fall down as an avalanche, right? You can see that there's an action tile here, and that's kind of to contribute to that, right? Across from that, you can also see we have this ladder here. Nothing fancy. Like I said, this is all giving you ideas as to where characters need to go because, yeah, you'll be following these different aspects of the board game here. Expansion tiles on the sides and expansion pins, etc. One of the other functions that you get here is by turning the knob on the very top of this, just a little knob, nothing fancy here, you can actually move the what is this called? Ski lift kind of thing? Yeah. Across the actual gully here, right? This little canyon. I think that that's super cool. It's a very simple function, and honestly, this should not be attached to it because that would mean this would move too, but that could be kind of cool. As you can see, the gold mask is under here. It's little stuff like this, but it's little stuff like this that I end up loving, to be honest. So I'm super happy with how everything is coming out as it stands, right? There's even little like shortcuts and stuff that are built into it as well. So the idea with each of these games, as is, well, with all of them really, is to essentially try to get your way to the key, try to get that key all the way across and use it to unlock the gold mask, then get the gold mask back to the start without losing it, right? Other characters can take it from you, other characters can do. So there's a lot of interaction throughout the whole game. I actually tested this one specifically with a friend of mine, and we did have a lot of fun for what it's worth. He's a big board game fan as it is, and he's very heavy into like the development of the games and like how they interact. We both love that kind of stuff. And so we literally spent like, I think near 2 hours playing this game. Obviously, part of that is because A, it's our first time playing it. We're kind of trying to hammer out each of the rule sets and stuff like that. But the whole point of this is to not just be a board game. Lego's done board games, but this is to be something different from what they've done in the past, something unique from what they've done in the past, and also be fun the whole time while still functioning as a displayable diorama, right? This is a bit large for a diorama set, for sure. I'll completely admit that. This is a tabletop set for what it's worth. And I think that you could definitely get some extra value out of it if maybe it could split down the center and you could add the two halves together. I bumped my microphone, apologize. If you could add the two halves together in like a longer formation for display purposes. But at the end of the day, it's just so baffling to me that something like this doesn't exist right now. Now, here's the thing. The reason I think this works better, at least to me, I think it's a lot easier to sell a desert themed set than a stone character, at least for Bionicle specifically, because deserts are beautiful, in my opinion. All of these different landscapes are beautiful. Ice, capped mountains and mines with mine carts that go around and waterfalls. Like, that's all nature, and so it's lovely to see it. It's all world building at the end of the day, and you're buying this to get multiple characters here as well, meaning you're not spending, $10 on one single character. Yeah, this would be expensive. It's a lot of parts here. You're probably thinking of $100 into something like this, most likely. Here's the thing too. I think that Bionicle is at its strongest when it is one of the cheapest themes on the shelf. I know that is probably a bit hearsay for sure. But Bionicle has always been a theme, at least in its past, when it was still being made by Lego, that has been affordable, if not anything else, for the most part. Yes, there would be some sets that be a little bit more expensive or exclusive or whatever the case, right? But 9 times out of 10, you could go get the sets, and that was its strength, because Lego had to introduce you to this stuff. The fact you could go buy a character that's, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches tall or whatever for $7 back in 2001 is astounding to me. And so I do think that these are the kind of things that Lego doesn't necessarily take a loss on. This is plastic at the end of the day. This does not cost them a lot of money to make. And overall, there are not actually a lot of unique molds here. There are probably some recolors, sure, big ugly rock pieces in light gray and in white, and even some pieces in light aqua, etc., right? Although I don't know why I used rubber trans light blue, but you get the point. Still, at the end of the day, I think this is a theme that really benefits from being on a shelf, not marked down, but being just cheaper to begin with. Something like this for $80 would be great. And you can see that there are nods to characters like Motoro with the red flags up here, and even characters here. Now, looking at the characters very quickly, you can see, well, where is Motoro? Where is Kopiki? The point of these sets is not to give you the Motoran, because that's the point of the pods, and I'll get to that here in a moment. But suffice to say, I think that this is still a really interesting concept, and you still get a lot of really fun stuff here. What I did was I went out of my way to make sure that all of the masks that represented characters in Generation 1 also were represented here. There are obviously a couple of masks that don't represent like important characters, or at least not characters we got sets for. The white Kakama technically could represent Kokan or whatever, but just as easily, you know, it could be any character you wanted. While the medium blue Komao clearly is a reference to Kopiki and his original color scheme. But you can see when we go over here to the pods, this is where we start getting into the characters that you would expect, right? Motoro, and of course Kopiki here as well. So each of these sets, as I've mentioned in the past, there are 2 pods for each of the 6 villages. The pods are essentially your, I want to say $10 sets, but these don't feel like $10 to me. These feel like maybe $7 or something in today's day and age, right? One of the sets is going to be a landmass of some kind. The other set is going to be Rahi based. And I want to stress that with the exception of these turtles and this little cricket here, because that is a bonus Rahi, all of the other Rahi that I've designed have functions. These are the only ones that don't, and the reason they don't is because A, they just look like what they are. Like the cricket here is really good design in my opinion. So yeah, it doesn't have a function, but it'd look great on a shelf amongst your other sets, right? And the legs can move, like you can do things with it, you can pose it. And the turtles, same thing. They don't do anything, but they have a lot of posability, and that is enough for me to think, yeah, these could and should exist, you know? It's simple, but it works. And I'm okay with that. But all of the other Rahi have a function. So anyway, with this pod, you would be getting some kind of extra little something to interact with, because the pods themselves are designed to actually attach to the game board. And there's actually a piece missing here, but you get the point, right? And on top of that, they just add to your collection, right? One of the other ideas I had for this series along the way was that essentially the Rahi, being that they are literally Rahi, these are not watered down, you know, milquetoast versions of, like, no, they're actual Rahi. They're Technic based. They have functions. They carry over the aesthetic of some kind of animal, or at least some abstract kind of animal, and they just work. And I'll show you the function of this one here in a moment, because again, it is sitting in front of me. But suffice to say, this build here is something that could be done by one person while the other person starts working on this, right? Lego more and more lately has been trying to do these builds that break down into sections so that multiple people can build at once. And I think that that's a really smart thing to do. But because these are different systems, it gives you 2 different experiences in terms of building, right? Because one is very heavily Technic based. The other one is very obviously system based. So you could have one person start on this. There's no way someone's going to finish this before this build here. It's 150 pieces though, which is a decent amount, but it's much less than the near 1,000 of the larger landmass, right? But it at least gives them a start on it so that another person can build this, and maybe 2 or 3 of the minifigures come packaged in a bag with this, while the other 2 come packaged in the bag with the bigger build. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a lot of fun. With all of that said though, I'm not going to go over the gameplay in this video because that's going to take a whole lot more time, to be honest. And we'll take a look at all of the Rahi that I've designed for this system here in a minute. But I just want to go ahead and show you this right here. So again, this has been featured in a video in the past because this is not just a Rahi. This is an alternate model that I designed as part of a challenge. This you can make just by owning the Moaka. If you have that set from 2001, you don't even need to have both. Just the Moaka, just the yellow build. You can make this. And this is what I call the Kuma. Not Kuma Nui, which is obviously the larger combination, but you can see it takes inspiration from that design. And it looks good, and it has a great function, in my opinion. A resetting bite that is relatively easy to understand. Long story short, to go over a little mini review of this build here, you can see you have a trigger mechanism that rides forward on one side, backward on the other. And all that happens is that little piece right there is going to collide with this black lift arm, which you can hardly see in here, but you can see that they're touching right now. And all that's going to happen is when I push down, this is going to go up. It's going to push that lift arm, which is connected to this axle, up as well, and disengage it. Once it's disengaged, these rubber bands in the head do their magic and the mouth closes. Then these rubber bands on the back do their thing. They go forward, they push up on the lift arm, and it catches, and that's a reset. It's so majestic with how it works. You can tell I'm super excited about it. That's the build that would be included with this one. It's one of my favorites that I've designed because it is a challenge. I've talked about this in the past. One of my absolute favorite functions is a resetting bite. What is the difference between a bite and a resetting bite? Resetting bite is what you find in the Kane-Ra Moaka set. It's what you find in the Barag sets. It's what you find in this, right? Whereas a standard bite would be something like what you find in the Master Builder set, where when you push down, the mouth opens. When you let go, the mouth closes. But this, all of the function happens in one motion, right? So I pull down, the mouth opens. I continue to pull down, I don't release, and the mouth closes. And that's the difference. One of the reasons that's one of my favorite functions is because it's actually pretty challenging. I have designed other Rahi with that function as well. The jaw lock that I designed, which was just more of a for fun thing, which I love. But this has to be one of my favorite iterations of it because it is an alternate model. There are no pieces here that were not included with the Moaka and Kane-Ra. So the fact that, or just the Moaka. So the fact that this just works is astounding to me. Like I said, when I made this, I was blown away. I remember sitting on a bed with all the parts in front of me, and I didn't even use, I don't even think I used half of the parts from that set to build this, and it's lovely. So the fact that I'm able to use it for a project like this to recreate that feeling it's special. And it's more special to me specifically because my first Rahi, which I got in 2003, crazy enough, because it was still on store shelves on sale for some reason, was Moaka and Kane-Ra. And I've talked about that in a story too. I went to the store to buy Takanuva. I had just enough money. I went there, Takanuva's on the shelf, $30, $35, Moaka and Kane-Ra. I'm like, Mom, can I have $5? I had to get it. It was the biggest thing I had seen. I loved the Rahi in 2001. I never got any of them. My mom brought home a Nui Jaga, and I was like, oh, you're my favorite, Mom. I will finally acknowledge you. And it turns out it was a birthday gift for one of my friends, and I was so sad. I was let down. I disowned my parents. No, I'm joking, of course. I still love her. But yeah, so it's special to me. And building that on my carport, because we didn't have a garage, is one of my most fond Bionicle memories. That area is one of my most fond Bionicle memories. I'm getting ahead of myself, but the point I'm trying to make here is that being able to take that and convert it over to this theme it's majestic to me. Maybe it's more special to me because of the significance of it. With all of that being said, I'll show you the other Rahi really quickly here too in studio. And I just want to say, I do want to add at least one more function to this set, maybe an explosion function of some kind, but I don't know exactly what I would do just yet. That wouldn't just blow the whole thing apart. I'm just no good at designing those. But yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it, and then we'll go ahead and end the video. So I have actually designed 14 Rahi for this series. 2 of the Rahi are kind of special cases. So the 6 Rahi that you see in the back row, all 6 of these would come with the landscapes, the large sets. This one here is for the fire themed set. I can't remember the names of all of them right now, but I do have them wrote down somewhere. Obviously, this one, as mentioned, is for the ice set. This one we've seen. They're smaller, but there's 2 of them, is for the copper mine, the earth set. The big ant here is for the desert set, which we've also seen. I can't remember the name of that one either. Anyway, this one is for the water set. There's also a version of this up on Lego Ideas right now, which you should absolutely go check out, by the way. And this one right here is for the jungle themed set. The ones in front of them are for the pods, specifically of that respective theme. So this one's jungle here. It is a snake, and it slinks around like those wooden snake toys, if you remember those at all. And I think that that's just hilarious. This one here, with both of these, including an actual brick-built Rahi for something different to do, is the water pod. This one here is the desert pod, the earth pod, the ice pod, and the second ice pod, because you actually get 2 different Rahi in that one, and then the fire pod here. And like I said, with the exception of both of these, all of the other Rahi that you see here that are not highlighted have functions of some kind, or features, whatever you want to call it. With all of that being said, it is a blast to design this kind of stuff. It is obviously my favorite part about Bionicle, about Lego in general, just being able to make something from nothing. Of course, I've talked about this. With all that being said, if this is something that you guys are interested in learning more about, of course, I'll be making more videos on this type of content here in the future. I've still got 3 more sets to cover, I believe. And on top of that, if you want to join in on the conversation, let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this. Or, of course, you can also just check out the Discord, which we hit 500 members. And, of course, Instagram and Patreon if you want to support the channel and get some perks. And who knows, maybe Lego will watch this. They're not going to watch this. But hey, I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.